Hi, thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day and thinking through some ideas with me that might make you a more effective leader, because leadership is hard. But sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be. And because it matters so much, let me suggest a simple change you could make that would make a big difference right away. You probably know by now that I'm D. Hicks and I'm with the Hilt Academy. We talk about things that really boil down to high impact leadership training. So, if you had a pretty busy day, maybe you're watching this at the end of the day, or maybe it's a break partway through the day, or maybe you're one of these folks who likes to binge watch videos like this. That's what I like to do on a weekend or a Friday night. Seems like I'm spend more time on YouTube really than I do in any other kind of medium. It's so helpful. I run across folks who have been so inspiring and interesting to me, and I love to follow them. So hopefully you are at a point in time where you're able to sit down and really think, get rid of a few distractions, hit the rewind button and replay segments when I don't seem to make sense, and you can back up and hear it again. Think about your day though. Maybe if you're at the end of the week, think about your week. Did you finish your work? You're not finished yet. Perhaps. Let me share a simple idea with you that will help you understand what I mean about finishing your work. So I've been able to spend time with some of the most amazing leaders across our country over the last 35 years. Been just really blessed to have great friendships develop with them and to learn from them. Back in the day, it might have been a Thursday as far as I know, I began to notice that a lot of my friends who were high impact leaders were experiencing what they call burnout. And they felt burnout, they described being burnt out, they described being overwhelmed. They talked about how the joy of their job and of their life even eventually was just sort of gone. They felt dry and brittle. Their creativity went away. Certainly their humor began to vanish. They noticed that they weren't quite depressed. They didn't have all of the clinical symptoms of depression, but they could see it from there. So we began to wonder what this thing was called burnout. And burnout was a term and is a term that we use to apply to people that came from the Industrial Revolution age. We've done that a lot, as you and I, as people work closely with technology and even machines sometimes, starting back in the Industrial Revolution, we got closer and closer to all that stuff, and therefore we started using words that we would normally use on a machine on people. You'll probably notice that even throughout your day today. You may have used words like productivity. Well, that's a word you use on a machine or on software on a system, but we use it on people as well. You may use the word stress. Well, that's an engineering term that we talk about how we're structuring something, and can it take a stress load like a beam or something like that. But we use that word on people. Burnout is a word we use on rockets where it runs out of fuel, and the only reason it's moving now is because it has momentum. It doesn't even have the ability to steer itself, so it's in burnout. So we borrowed that word once again and we applied it to people. So these friends of mine over the years, I noticed, began talking about being burnt out, even though they didn't really know what exactly it meant. They just felt like the joy of life and the joy of work, and there is joy in both, was missing. And they felt like that everything they did took a little more effort with a little less return on that effort, a little smaller results every time they turned around. And over a period of time, even these highly optimistic and very energetic, wonderfully creative people found themselves just kind of going through the motions. So there was a lot of early research around burnout and what it was and what to do about it. And then that was mixed with a whole lot of opinions about what should be done. Uninformed opinions from people who probably had never experienced it, but wrote great articles in Fast Company magazine or in the Wall Street Journal or in Harvard Business Review, and got a lot of popularity. And the solutions, of course, to burnout and loss of creativity and loss of joy had to do with things like take a vacation. That's important. You should be able to do that. But if you're burnt out, take a vacation. It's not going to help. Go for a walk on the beach, take a bubble bath, take up a hobby. Those were kind of the casual solutions that were given to people. And, when you're tired and beginning to be burnt out, you'll try a few things. They just don't actually work. So I began to wonder, along with a few of my associates, what can we really do to address burnout and exhaustion in leaders? So if you're a leader or a manager or a supervisor or an influencer of people, and you've been doing it very long, and you've had success and failure and success and failure, you have begun to experience, very likely, the edges of burnout. Why? We wanted to know why. So a few years ago, we did deep dive into this and discovered that the reason you and I begin to experience and then stay in a burnout, discouraged place is not that we have too much to do, and it's not that we're not taking vacations on the beach. It's because we don't finish our work. You're not finished yet. Should ring in your ear and my ear. And let me help you understand what I mean by not finishing. First of all, why do we work in the first place? If your answer is to earn money, period, that's the end of the story, then you probably want to just fast forward to the end of this video and go somewhere else. That's fine, because this really won't relate to you. And that's fine if that's your only reason for working is just to make money and put food on the table. That's fine, and your job, it has no meaning to you whatsoever. You've never experienced a job that had any sort of fulfillment whatsoever. But most of us are not like that. Most of us have found ourselves in jobs that, at least in part, or at least in theory, can have some sort of significance to them. In fact, it's part of being human. We want to be engaged in something that matters. And it doesn't have to matter right away. And it doesn't have to matter to everyone. But it does have to matter to us eventually. And so why do we work? We work for the result of our work and for the learning along the way. One of the results of our work is the joy of a job well done. You know what that's like when you do a good job? There's joy involved in that. Is there even a better word for that? Can you even think of a better word than joy? It's enjoyment, it's fascination, it's fun. It's a deep thing that happens. Work isn't a curse, it's a blessing if you and I are able to actually finish our work, and if that work is pointed in the general direction of something that's helpful. It's a great place to be, and that's probably the kind of job that you have got. It's probably the kind of career that you've got. You can certainly think back about times when in your career, in your job as an adult, that you were doing things that were futile, and you felt like it was a complete and utter waste of your life. And so you made changes. It might have taken you a year or two, but you eventually made those changes so that you could be engaged in something that to you and even a couple of other people really, really mattered. Good for you. Good for you. But even when we do that, we can find ourselves sometimes burning out. We can kind of begin to smell the burnt tires wherever we go, metaphorically. We don't wake up with as much joy in the morning or as much enthusiasm as we used to. Our creativity begins to wane, and so does our humor, like I mentioned earlier. And we feel like we're just tired all the time. What do we do about it? So in another video that we talked about, which was called Slow Down, and there's a link right up here to that video if you want to watch it. In that video, we set up a way for you to notice that not rushing through your day actually makes you more effective. Now, to add to that, to the very end of that video, we talked about how we complete the work cycle. Here's the idea. This will be amazing. Again, it's a simple idea, and it therefore is a simple change that you and I can make that will bring about a great big difference, and it'll do it right away if you and I understand this idea. It's not that we have too much to do. It's that we don't finish our work. That's why we get burnt out. What do I mean by finishing our work? Remember we talked in that other video about a thing called a work cycle. If you haven't seen that work cycle before, let me just catch you up. Think of a big circle, like a cycle. Work starts with a need at the top of that work cycle. We identify some sort of need. We need to do this. This needs to be done. Then we move around that work cycle and we make a plan. Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it? What do we need? How are we going to do it? That sort of thing. That's the plan. And in and of itself, making a plan is kind of cool. If you're a planner type, I am. I love a plan. If you like planning, then that in and of itself is kind of rewarding. But we haven't finished our work when we plan. In fact, sidebar, if you've got a lot of plans and have never started them, it'll actually become a little toxic to you. So get moving on those plans that are sitting over there. You haven't even started on them. Or decide, I'm never going to do that, and completely move on from it. Don't have a long list of plans that I will do someday. In another one of our conversations, we'll talk about unfulfilled plans and why someday is so destructive to us as leaders, to our teams, to our enterprises, and to our mission. So there we go. But making a plan is fun. So make a plan. Then once you make the plan, you got to get moving. And that's the next part of the work cycle. So need, plan, implement. You got to execute that. You got to get moving on it. So we execute. We do the work. Sidebar, let me highly recommend to you Stephen Pressfield's book called Do the Work. It is a book that I read or listen to once or twice a year ever since it's come out. Now, at this part of the work cycle down here, we just do the work. But that's only half of the work cycle. See, down here it stopped. A lot of us, when we get burnt out and tired and have a lot to do on our plates, we think we're done. When we do the work, we're done. We go right back up here to next need and go around like this. It's not a complete cycle. Most of the time, though, we take at least a moment to move on to the next step in the work cycle, which is to evaluate. Did the work that we do, the work that we accomplished, did that work meet the need? Remember, there was a need identified. Did what we accomplished meet the need? That's the evaluation. And did it meet the need in the best way we knew how at the time? That's evaluation. It's a wonderful thing. And if you are an evaluator type mind, you'll like that part as well. Most of the time, that is where we stop. Then we go from evaluation back up to our next need. We don't actually finish our work. When you finish your work, you're not finished yet. When you evaluate and look back and think a better way to do it, you're not finished yet. The most important step in completing the work cycle is this step right up here. Celebrate. What we mean by celebrating is really important. You just, alone or together with a group of people, created something that did not exist. Maybe it was an idea. Maybe it was a phone call. Maybe it was a video like this. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was a spreadsheet. Maybe it was a new part for a motorcycle. You created something that simply didn't exist an hour, a day, a week, a month ago. It didn't exist. You created something. It is amazing what you did. Maybe what you did is fix something or stop something. And by doing that, by stopping something or fixing something, you created something. You created an opportunity. You created freedom. You created something. By virtue of creating that thing, it is now the most important step for you to take. Pause and celebrate. If you and I do not pause and celebrate with work that's finished, our work is not finished. You're not finished yet until you pause and celebrate. And you're probably thinking, get about 12 or 13 people together and, pour them all some wonderful bourbon and have a big long party and who's going to bring the tablecloths and who's bringing the chips. None of that. That's another work cycle. That's not what I'm talking about at all. By the way, that's fun. That's fine. Do that. But that's not actually the celebration. The celebration is a pause. Step one of a celebration, realize it's time. I'm done. Stop evaluating. Step one, stop evaluating. Done with evaluating. Step two, pause. Okay. That's right. It's time to pause. Step 3, admire the thing of beauty that you, alone or together with others, created. And what this means is that you've got to step back from it a little bit. You're not admiring yourself. I'm pretty amazing, aren't I? I'm pretty good at this kind of thing. You're not admiring yourself. You're admiring that thing of beauty you created, whatever it was, whether you could touch it or just think about it. This thing of beauty you created is now separate from you, the creator, or you and your team, the creators of that. Set it out here and admire it for just a moment. There should be something that marks that celebration. There should be some sort of pause, something that happens. Maybe it's the perfect candy. Maybe you open a fresh bag of the perfect candy ever invented. Peanut M&Ms, that's my opinion. And maybe you have a little bag of peanut M&Ms, not the big size, because then you create other work, right? But just a little, maybe you bring somebody over who was a part of it, and you say, isn't that a thing of beauty? Isn't that a wonderful thing? It's really a moment. It's 2 moments. It's 6 minutes or 16 seconds. I don't know. Pause and admire the thing of beauty that you created. That's why you're here, is to create beautiful things. Maybe it's a wonderful building you designed, or maybe it's just a recipe of some cool meal you made for your family. Maybe you're a single mom, you got 1 child, you're exhausted, you come home, you make a meal, enjoy the meal, pause and celebrate that meal as a thing of beauty. Here's the amazing thing. When you do that, when you pause and celebrate the thing of beauty you created, it gives you energy. I don't know, it's like it fills you up. And now you start looking for the next thing that you get to do. Maybe a pause and celebrate is something as simple as toasting. Maybe a pause and celebrate is having someone else enjoy it. Here's the danger, though. Do not slide back into evaluation while you're celebrating. Stay in celebration mode. Enjoy it. It's done. It's now finished. Everything is done. That's why we work, because we want to finish the work in such a way that we can celebrate it. Here's my challenge to you as we wrap up this part of our conversation. Look back at this day. Maybe you're watching this at 9 in the morning. Well, look back over the last hour, or look at yesterday. Maybe you're watching this on a Thursday evening. You've got a couple of days you can look back on. What is something that today or yesterday you finished? You're not going to evaluate it. It was a thing of beauty, and you'd like to pause and celebrate it. That is how we keep from getting into burnout. That's also how we stay utterly engaged in those few things in life that matter. And you know what? Leadership matters. Matters a lot. So let's not make it harder than it needs to be by not celebrating when our work is done. I hope you have a great day. I hope you really enjoy this. You are doing good work. It's probably time to pause and notice it and spread that around to other people who are so busy running from one thing to another as well. Get them to pause and celebrate. And when they go into that obsessive spiral of evaluate, I could have, I should have, I would have, that kind of thing, pull them out of that and say, no, it's done. Let's just enjoy how beautiful that thing was. You know what? It's been enjoyable to spend some time with you. I hope this is helpful. If it was helpful, click the like button. Click the subscribe button if you want to see more. If you want to know when it comes out, click that little bit of a bell. And you know what? This was a fun conversation to have with you. Wish you were sitting right here. And if you were, I'd do this. Wasn't this a great conversation? I hope your day is going great. Let's pause and celebrate. Here's to you.